Alrighty, welcome to the Studio Corner podcast, Margaux.
Hello.
Now, how do you say your last name?
Pinero.
Pinero. I like it. Are you going to keep that last name?
And I'm trying to get him to do a combo hyphen. Lynn's not a very long last name.
It's not. It's 3 letters.
It's just Pinero Lynn. Kind of exotic.
Ooh, I like that actually.
Right?
Whoa.
It's not so bad.
Yeah, I like that.
I know.
Anyway, thanks for coming on the show. You're actually episode 50.
Do I get something special for that?
Nah, it's
Just a
just-
small party.
I mean, this is the first episode of a new decade.
Okay.
It's the first episode of the second year. And to everyone that's been listening for the last year, huge thank you. It's a kick-ass year.
Good job, guys.
But yeah, I'm excited. This is first episode number 50. I didn't think I would make it this far.
Good
Your
job.
soon-to-be husband was my very first guest.
Aw, he's over there sitting quietly.
Yeah.
He's a good husband.
Well, one, obviously, thank you for coming on. I haven't done an episode in about a month, and it wasn't really like, it was just kind of this thing where, like, I wanted to take a break, and so many people were in town for the holidays, but they weren't available.
Myself
And-
included.
Yeah, and they weren't available because everyone was so busy. And I went to this event the other night. It was like at LA Vintage Gear. It's a legendary music shop in Burbank, and there was a lot of players and a lot of guys that do session work, and they kept saying the word season. Like, it's not, this season or that season, touring season. I'm like, I didn't realize things had seasons, like, in this industry. So I thought to myself, I'm bringing a graphic designer on. Is there seasons in your industry? Are there, like, seasons where, like, people just overflow you with, they need graphics done?
It's been a bit since I've kind of been freelance on my own. I obviously work for a company now. And it almost feels like every week is a season, of just like new things, which is the one thing that I totally love about where I work is I'm never bored, ever. But I would say probably like a little bit before the holidays for us gets a little crazy because it's the start of the new year. A lot of people also for tax reasons, if for freelancers, are looking to like, okay, where can I put my money? You know what I mean? To build my business, but not necessarily have to pay so much in taxes. So I'm going to spend that money, and a lot of people want to spend money on their marketing and branding and new things. So I would say maybe before the January.
That makes sense, though. I mean, everyone's like the new year, new release.
Yeah.
Because I thought of it because touring, I don't remember what seasons it was, but like touring has certain seasons because it's based off of people that will come to shows. And like December is a total dead time because, you can't tour the world. Half the places are snowing. It's too cold.
Yeah.
But I imagine with like graphic design, it's like, oh, new projects coming up, or like even holiday cards and things like that.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for that.
Everybody's looking for their, season's greetings from,
My
whoever
family.
or whatever. Yeah.
Holiday cards are weird, right? Like they just send you a picture of their family. And like, that's great. Like, I'm more power to you. Like, I'm glad you, but like, I don't want this. Like, I don't know you that well.
There are a few, holiday cards that I'm like, I'll keep it up just out of respect that you paid the postage to give this to me. You know what I mean? But at the end of the year, it's probably going in the trash. I feel so bad about that too.
Right? It's such a messed up thing. Like,
It
hey,
is. I feel
look
awful.
at me. Don't throw this away.
Yeah, I almost thought, oh, maybe me and Charlie will send out like a Christmas card. I was like, I don't know if anybody just wants a picture of me and Charlie. Like, they're probably gonna throw it away later.
But to like close people, sure. But I mean, I get some that are just like, I've talked to you once, man.
They're like, here's my children and my children's children, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. All right. So what I want to do first and foremost is why I'm doing this episode. We talked about it a little bit just now. I had the Studio Corner rebranded with a logo. I had my own personal brand rebranded by the same graphic designer, Voice Crack. And I went through a few designers. I even called you a while ago to consult you about your opinion on how to approach this. And I've dealt with some messy situations and some situations that I came out very unsatisfied. Eventually, I got everything I wanted with my recent graphic designer. But I realized that as young artists develop, as they become like adults, they have to get jobs, right? So can't be an artist and make a great living anymore. I mean, you can, but it's very hard. So graphic design is like the next thing. These artists are going to graphic design school to take it and be able to, to a whole new medium, which is great, and create a career. I think what the issue is there's no etiquette taught. And I'm a musician. I've been in and out of studios. We have session players, and there's a certain etiquette when you hire people, certain different levels, and working your way into the scene is very difficult because the only way to learn the etiquette is by being in there. And you don't want to show up and be an idiot, because then all the engineers are looking at you like, who is this kid? So I was hoping that we could role play. Okay. Once again, you wouldn't be role playing because you are a graphic designer. Let me make that clear. She is a graphic designer. And
only on my good days.
And the bad days.
Oh man.
So I was hoping we could walk through the idea of hiring, so people can listen to this episode and know as much as they need to know right off the bat on what this process should look like, what the etiquette is, what the manners are, when it's okay to say things, what kind of things are okay to say, because there's a side of that's too mean or don't be afraid to speak up,
Okay. Well, I mean, we can definitely go ahead and do that. I'm very open to it. I think also just to start off saying that I think every graphic designer is going to be slightly different based off of their experience. Also, you're gonna vibe off of somebody differently. Different artists come with a different angle, a different eye, a different style. So I don't know if there's an etiquette standard. Mm-hmm. There are some things that would be helpful, I think, for people to know to come in with information that they may already want to have on hand that could be helpful. But any graphic designer that is worth their salt will be able to guide their client to what they ultimately are after, or try to, help them to see what they want and how they can provide that to them. So,
interesting. Their job is to guide. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, occasionally you get a client that there's a, it's not unguidable, but it's, you guys are just not quite seeing eye to eye. And
not compatible in a sense.
It's a little bit of a difficult project, but, you make it through. You get a finished product that they're happy with, and hopefully you're happy with. And, yeah, you end up with a good client relationship. But there are those ones, but I think that's just life in any job. So,
yeah.
But, yeah.
I like that starting point, though. What are the things that, say if I'm a client, I'm coming to hire you, what are the things that I need to come ready with?
So for me, one of the things that I would, in my first meeting with somebody, I would kind of say, what are you here for? Obviously, whether it's a logo, a web design, complete rebranding, or are we talking about just my business card, but I want to keep my logo? So there's a lot of different angles we can go with that. But definitely ask them what they're looking to get. And then also, the style that they had in mind. What's really helpful nowadays, it can be helpful and sometimes a little bit much, is Pinterest.
Oh, God.
I know, right? Because it's a rabbit hole. I'll even go down a Pinterest rabbit hole and just be completely zoned out for 3 hours. But, I'll always, tell a client, pick, 3 or 4, let's say it's a logo. Okay. Mm-hmm. Pick 3 or 4 logos from other companies that you like. That's it. And then bring them to me. And then when in that meeting, I'll say, okay, what is it you like about this logo? What is it you like about this logo? What is it you like about this? And oftentimes, somebody will say I really like the font here, or I really like, this big circle. Mm-hmm. And, or I really like the picture graphic on this one, but this one, is actually too dark. So I'm already starting to get a feel for what they don't want and what they do want. And in which case, like I said, a graphic designer will be able to pick up on what they're saying and then say, okay, well, so let's, moving forward, do something that has a circle, but maybe we kind of go for some lighter tones, even like a whiter, element here. And, we're going to try to choose a font that's close to that for your,
So you're helping them guide themselves in a sense.
Yeah. You're trying to, it's like figuring out a little bit of a puzzle. Yeah. But having that imagery, at least for me, is a lot easier than having them try to describe to me what they want. Mm-hmm. Because I think sometimes if they're pulling from the air, I want it to be, splashy, but also not too in people's faces. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, that's
that can go 10 different directions, and sometimes asking okay, well, what their company is about too. Yeah. Is it are you a fun company? Are you, are you a lawyer? Then you're going to want something a little more serious,
Yeah.
you know, unless you're trying to be a lawyer that's like, well, I'm really trying to just help, people in need, in which case I kind of want to give a softer edge to, my company look. So finding those things out are all important angles, I think.
So that's always interested me, the whole science of, you go to school, you learn about, what colors mean and what certain shapes lead to and fonts, and like that is a rabbit hole in itself, that what all that means. I mean, I had no idea until a very close friend of mine went to school for this and shared. I was like, what the hell? But it's beautiful. It's incredible how much goes into it and how much thought there is. So as a designer, when you're meeting a new client, even before they come to you, you already have all this knowledge and understanding, but this person doesn't. Like, what's the kind of mindset a graphic designer needs to approach that first set with? Do they open mind wise, and what to look for right off the bat in a person, how they communicate? Like, what are the things as a designer that are good, bad, and like red flags maybe before you even like start working with them?
Okay. I mean, again, I never would say like, oh, this is bad when you run into this, because half of my job as a freelance designer is to know my tools and to know my trade enough to guide you in what you need or what you're trying to get out of me. Mm-hmm. So that is a little bit of the job. I don't think I've ever had a client come in and know, like, okay, so I need you to give me a vector graphic because I need it for X, Y, and Z, and I want it to have, a brain left and right with, headphones, and that's like, I know for a fact that, and I want it in this style. It's never happened.
Would that be an ideal situation though?
No.
Because it kind of takes away your creativity, right?
I mean, because I think sometimes if people come in with like, this is exactly what I want, I've had a lot of times where people think that that's exactly what they want. And then once they see it, then they're like, oh, well, maybe we wanted this and we wanted that. And there is a creativity to it, which is nice. It is nicer when a job doesn't take 10 revisions. I won't lie about that. But I think coming in, like I said, with those kind of samples, having a general idea of what you like, maybe even doing some research on the graphic designer themselves and their style and what they've previously done for other clients, just so you know what you might be getting out of them, Yeah. Because, it's kind of almost like a tattoo artist. Like you go to them for their style. I mean, granted, a graphic designer, if you need to make money, you adjust, you change your style up,
Yeah.
Which is kind of an awesome part of also being a graphic designer. But everybody does have a tendency to be like, oh, this is like more my vibe. So yeah.
Well, because I was going to say my tattoo artist and my graphic designer are very similar in the sense when I approach them, I say like, hey, I like what you do. This is the idea I'm going for. These are like elements that I like. I want you to like, you're an artist at the end of the day. And I feel like graphic designers aren't looked at as artists enough. Because regardless if you're a painter or a sculptor, it's like, this is still design. It's a very deep, intense art, which also has an understanding of like graphics, which is, like we said, a rabbit hole. And to have someone approach you and say, hey, this is an idea. Can you guide me? While you're having to guide someone and create, I feel like we can't forget. At least from my perspective, I view it as like, those are artists.
We appreciate that.
To every one of you.
Speak on behalf of all the graphic designers out there. We are very much artists. And I think where that disconnect happens sometimes is where people, I'll joke with a lot of my designer friends of like having that magic design button, where they're like, okay, so just make me this. And you're like, oh, okay, let me hit my design button.
Boom.
And it'll appear. It requires time and thought, even if people do come in with an idea of like, I want, I don't know, 10 feathers, but then I kind of want them all swirling around a circle. Okay. Well, I have to figure out, I know, God, I hope nobody ever asked me to do that. At least not for a logo. But you have to, as a designer, say, okay, they want these elements. How do I put them in there to where it works for, the materials they want to put it on, as well as have it, read that way visually to other people and, make my client happy, while still artistically looking nice.
Yeah.
So it's, you're not just thinking like, I'm putting that one thing that you just told me on a piece of paper. We're trying to figure out, how it translates through a bunch of different mediums and, people, and figuring that layout out. So it requires some artistic ability there.
Absolutely, yeah. So is there like ever, I guess red flags isn't the right word, but like compatibility, I feel like is such a big thing, because very much like a tattoo artist, like if you just have this image of, I want to get this exact pen tattooed on my body, you can go into any tattoo shop and there's going to be someone that can tattoo this on your body. If you want to look for a piece of art, it's like, going to an art show, look at the artist you like, buy an art, but like you find a tattoo artist that has very much a style that you like, and you give them elements and they create a piece for you. So not even just that, it's the compatibility of like, do you like their vibe? Do you like who they are as a person? Like, you're going to be sitting there for like 2 days maybe.
Yeah.
I for one am getting a 2-day tattoo in March. Like, thank God I'm like really good friends with my tattoo artist. Because I thought about it, I was like, can I sit there with like a stranger and like someone I don't vibe with?
Yeah.
And the same thing with graphic design, because there is so much back and forth, like there is a compatibility factor. And I guess from my personal experience, because I'm not a professional graphic designer by any means, like whatsoever, but as a client in my experience, one of the biggest things I've paid attention to is like, could I hang out with you? Could I hang out with you and talk about something?
Can I stand you for more than 5 minutes?
and that's a huge thing. So it's like, but you don't, we don't really know until like we're like the second design deep, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if I like this person, Yeah. So as with your experience, is there something to pay attention to, like things to know when like you're really vibing with someone? Like, how do you know when like this is the one?
I think again, it boils down to that, that guidance that I, keep bringing up. Is
I like that. Keep bringing it up.
If you feel that, like,
emphasize that,
if someone's talking to you and you're like, yeah, I think I like this and I like this and I like this, or these 3 examples, and they're kind of leading you down another path where they're like, cool, we're gonna do thunderbolts then, and some purple, and you're like, I mean, I was thinking maybe we just stick with this, and they're like, yeah, but I think this would jazz it up more, and you're gonna want to go that direction. You want somebody that makes you feel comfortable. That's not, I mean, it's okay to have somebody's professional opinion, because obviously that's what you're paying them for.
Absolutely.
But they should be able to say it in a way that makes you feel comfortable about it, and not like you're being forced through a gate that you don't want to go down.
Okay.
And I think that's the kind of the difference in knowing if you've selected the right graphic designer for you, is if they make you feel comfortable with the direction that you're going and ultimately happy.
Interesting. That's really important.
That at the end of the day is you want a happy client. I mean, I want to get paid, but I want you to be happy, because otherwise, why? I don't get return business, right?
Yeah.
You don't tell your friends about me. If anything, I get a bad Yelp review, and then I get no more clients.
Well, it's also like, such a big thing in everybody is the ability to speak up, where so many of us have such an issue with like speaking up or standing up for ourselves, just because we don't want to make a conflict, or we don't want to,
yeah.
But like, it's very easy to fall under, and especially with graphic design, you have a professional offering you something, saying this is the right direction. It's like, you don't want to go that way, but they're saying you should, and you don't want to say anything to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
So it's like that barrier it's there.
Yeah.
And it needs to be broken down. Like, the client needs to be able to speak up, and the graphic designer needs to be able to share. And I get what you're saying is they need to guide, but in a sense that says, hey, no matter what you want, I'm here to work with you.
Yeah. Ultimately,
it's comforting.
If I get pushback at somebody's like, I really don't want black in my logo, and in my mind, I'm thinking, well, at one point you're going to need to have a black and white logo for, X, Y, and Z, then you communicate that professionally, that is something that they will probably eventually need down the road. Mm-hmm. But if they really don't feel comfortable with it at this time, that you can go ahead and design with the elements that they would like to proceed forward with. And then in the future, if they find the need that they need that black and white element, they can come back to you, and you'd be happy to revise it for them.
Well said.
Exactly. I mean, it's like you really try to work with the person. And I think if you find somebody that, again, doesn't make you feel like they're trying to shove you off a cliff, then it's probably the right person.
So say I've hired you now, right? We've gone over a logo for a new brand. Right. We vibe really well. And I've brought in my 4 logos, 4 logos that I like, and we've chosen the elements, and you go and you do the first design. you bring me the first design and I like certain parts of it, and I say, okay, but let's say I like one aspect of it. What is the proper way to like say, hey, the rest of it is I'm not feeling.
This is not the right direction that I wanted to go in. I think, I'm thinking like 10 different angles on what you just said too, because I'm like, well, it depends what the contract was in the beginning.
Well, so
that's another thing.
So that's a huge thing. So like contract, like do you sign a contract or agreement that says 3 revisions, 2 of it? What's like the average?
It's different. Honestly, I feel like for every graphic designer, I've done it where it's literally been, a flat rate for a logo. But I will do up to, 3 revisions. If it's something super minor, like, oh yeah, I can change that in like 5 minutes. Like I'm not going to charge you for it or consider it a revision. Let's say after the 3 revisions, you're like, oh, I just wish that like that one letter was just a little closer there. Like I'm not going to, be like, oh, sorry, that not in the contract.
$500.
I cannot move that. I mean, it'd be kind of cool, but no, that would just be, but yes, I mean, usually as a graphic designer starting out, there's always that like learning process.
Yeah.
And you do have to go through that to a certain extent. It's always starting from the bottom up of like, okay, like, because I think you learn your voice through those types of situations of like, okay, this is like the 10th revision I've done for this person, and I'm literally charging them like a flat rate of $200 or $100, and it's a lot of work, and and you have to communicate that to the client. Ideally, for young graphic designers starting out, is set that up early.
Okay.
Set up. I always do 3 revisions. I'll come to you with your one logo, and I'm show it to you. Depending on obviously the contract, sometimes people want to see, 1 or 2 logos, one different from the other, depending really like if they had a clear direction that they wanted to go in, or if they're like, I'm not really sure, let's explore some options.
Okay.
But definitely set up that revisions limit or hourly, which again boils down to communication, because sometimes clients get a little bit upset when you're like, well, I spent 6 hours on this revision, but I'm charging you, $50 an hour. So here's the bill.
Yeah.
And they're like, did you really spend 6 hours on that? Did you? So a lot of the times what I'll do with clients also, if they're looking for, if I'm thinking that this is going to be more of not a difficult client, but they're not 100% sure of what they want, is I'll set like a limit, like a money limit, and say, okay, I'll do 3 revisions, and I'll have an hourly rate, and once we hit this like rate, or like 500 or 300 or whatever, we decide to set, because you have to talk about the budget with the client too.
Okay.
I'll kind of notify them like, okay, well, you've already asked for a certain amount of revisions, and they've taken me X amount of time. We're getting close.
Yeah.
So it's up to them to either say, that's fine, we're going to go ahead and we're going to extend the budget, or like, okay, I need to make a decision depending on, how much they want to spend.
So in that scenario, like you give me that, say let's call it 500, right? $500. I'm going to get 3 revisions. Mm-hmm. Say you send back the first revision, and in the agreement, of course, there's timelines. Like within 2 weeks, I'll have the first revision, whatever whatever you decide that is. Say you give me the first revision, and like I hate it. I don't want any of it. Mm-hmm. As a client, and because most people have some sort of manners.
I was gonna say I don't think I've ever met anyone who was like, this fucking sucks.
Well, like
just
no one's gonna
things
say
off the table, and I was like, oh.
Because like we know you went through so much work, and like but we want to communicate like, hey, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. Because it's the first revision, and it's in that situation where like I've paid like this amount to have 3 revisions. How okay is it for the client to say, hey, scrap it and let's start something else, because this is nothing that I want? Like, or I mean, hey, let's work from it, because I don't like any of this.
I think that, if you give them a product that's so far away from what they want, mm-hmm. then ideally you didn't use all of your time on that first one. Again, for a graphic designer, you kind of go into that first one, and it's typically how I work is when I give it to the person, because I know they're not going to be happy with the first product. There's going to be some changes.
Okay.
It's a little rough, but polished enough that it's finished. And if they happen to love it, then great. Then I just, tweak it up and polish it up even more so it reads really well. And that's awesome. But you kind of know on that first one going in that you're there to expect some revisions, so you don't spend like, I spent 10 hours like building this and now you only have 2 hours of time left.
Okay.
So as a graphic designer, you also balance that out, and sometimes, if you're so far off the brief, like you're saying, and you come in
situation.
And and they're like, this is not at all what I wanted, then, sometimes you're like, oh, okay. And you take the hit, or you communicate with them like, okay, well, you said you wanted black and you said you wanted a circle. And what we talked about was you wanted all these elements. Are you seeing it now and deciding you don't like it? In which case, sorry, but that is what you told me that you wanted.
Okay. All right.
Or, did I just kind of go off so far off the end from what you actually had told me in the original, brief, that like, okay, I need to rein myself in and just kind of take that hit as like a learning curve.
So I think this is a really important factor as a client, because I feel like you guys have so much work to do with the guessing. Like, you're trying to guess what's going on in our visually impaired minds because we are not educated in this. Like we think we see something, and then we try to communicate what we think we want. And then you have to somehow make something of that,
Yeah.
And there's a guidance factor for sure. But like that first revision, because I've lucked out so much. Like, my first revision, like the logo I have for the show, this was basically the first one I got.
I remember you were telling me.
And then like I had her do like a multiple different ones, see if I like something. I ended up right back here. It was great.
Yeah. See, but you had her explore other options, right?
Absolutely.
Because you were slightly unsure that you're like, okay, this is good and I like it.
I wanted to see something else.
But just in case, I want to see something else, right?
Yeah.
You weren't one and done and you're like, great. Like,
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
So
I've lucked out though.
Yeah.
So, but like as a client, as someone communicating that, I feel like it's really important to emphasize the fact that we are trying to make you see what's in our minds, right?
Yeah.
And make you play this guessing game, and at the same time take responsibility. Because one of the things I've noticed is how much, especially like I said, these young kids getting right out of college, graphic design, trying to get these freelance jobs, and it's a great way for artists to make money. Like, I think it's and I think it's an incredible, like, unlimited platform. The medium is out of control. It's literally unlimited.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get really excited about it.
No, we talk to a group of graphic designers, we get very excited about paper and tools and all kind of things.
But like, there's so much, put on your shoulders. Say you're 22, you just graduated school, and like you get 3 jobs, and they're all with companies or whatever. They're hiring you to do this, and you send them the first revision, and they're just like roasting you. And like, in your head, that they didn't communicate what they needed to communicate, and you've done exactly what they did communicate. Like, people hiring graphic designers need to know that. But like, for a young kid walking to an established company, like, how do they deal with that? What is like the mental?
I think
at least advice wise.
Like, it happens. Even if you're a seasoned person, and it's really like situational. Like, there are times that even in the company that I work for, that I've done something that is pretty spot on to what someone told me to do. And they're like, what's this? This is nothing and you're just kind of like, okay.
So like,
all right, I'll change this up. You know what I mean? But that happens sometimes. But if you're going into a freelance, and like you're saying, if you're like a younger person starting out, it's really about that communication, because you have to understand that they're putting as much stress for the guessing that you're under, like that I've been talking about as far as this guessing game.
Yeah, you
have to understand that this person is also giving you their hard-earned money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's put there. I think both parties have something that they're both have skin in the game. You know what I mean? So it's about that communication. And sometimes you take a hit and you're just like, okay, and understanding when somebody maybe is taking it too far and you need to push back as a designer and as a client too.
Yeah.
You know, you also have to know when somebody continues to not listen to what you want, or if the designer is listening to what you want, but for some reason they're not quite getting there, then, you know, I would suggest finishing the contract to its end of what you guys agreed upon on the price and finding another designer, or kind of stopping them in their work before they start doing more work and just say, you know, I don't think this is really going in a direction that, you know, is working for me, and I'll just leave it at here for this time and leave it at that.
That's really hard to say to like a designer after you hire
Oh,
them.
it's hard for anybody
because it's gonna hurt you, hurt their feelings, and it's, you know, as it should.
Yeah.
It's a really touchy subject. You know, it's really that's why I thought this was really important. Like I want this to be like talked about. So like, you know, communication in itself in any situation, there's always like skills and practices, how to communicate better, how to listen better, in this realm, like if you came to say, hi, here's some things to practice, some things to do, some things to go listen to, go read to help you learn how to communicate what you're visually seeing. Are there things, as I'm going to call us regular people, non-graphic designers, that we can do? Like when I want to design a logo and I need to figure out how I want to communicate what I'm seeing. Are there things that we can practice, things that we can do, whether it's sketching it ourselves, reading a book on graphic design, or, you know, anything like that can help us communicate better?
I don't think you need to go as far as reading a book on graphic design. I mean, if you want to, more power to you. I think that's awesome. I'm all about learning different things. But visuals are really, really, really great because, again, like I said, if I would ask my client to bring me 3 things that they like and then be able to look at them and ask them specifically, what is it you want, or what is it you like about this one? What is it you like about this one? And then what don't you like? And then from that, you kind of put those puzzle pieces together, and we're actually seeing what you're saying. So instead of, you know, using things like, you may say bold, right? Oh, I want it to be bold and heavy and masculine and or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna do like a, heavier font. I'm gonna, make this really dark colors. I'm gonna, right? My brain goes somewhere else.
Communication has to be visual.
Yeah, and your bold might be, oh no, I was thinking like something sleek and like really like this way. So if I can see it, even if you use the term bold, I'll say, okay, I know what he means. Like I know what he's saying. Like he's saying more like a bold statement less than like a heavy font. You know what I mean?
It's super interesting because we will use terminology that we think is proper, but you've been educated on this exact terminology. So that's a really good point. I think I had trouble with that right off the font in my logo. I made a statement and like she sent it back. I was like, I'm not saying this right. I know I'm not saying this right. Like I'm going to show you what I want to say. Well,
and that's another thing is don't be shy. You are literally paying this person to, again, guide you. Visuals help, and just get all your ideas out there. I would say try to limit yourself. Don't come in with 50 pictures.
Oh God.
Please don't.
Oh God.
Please don't. Because chances are those 50 pictures are going to be going in 20 different directions, and that's either going to cost you a lot of money, and if you don't care, then great, or it's going to create a lot of confusion for your graphic designer.
Yeah.
Come in with like top 3 of whatever it is you're asking to be designed. That's why I use that number 3, because I feel like that gives enough of a range that it's not so wide that it's like, oh, okay, we're going to be working with a lot of elements here. But it's not so limited that you're literally like, okay, I'm going to copy this one image because they're saying they love everything about it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you can kind of pick and choose like, okay, I see what they're wanting. And if you have some skills at stick figure doodling, like do a little, I was thinking kind of like this, like I know it's crude or whatever, but
I did that one time with a pencil.
Yeah, get what's in your head out. I feel like sometimes if people, when they verbally try to communicate what they want artistically, it doesn't always come out right because, you may say a word that I interpret differently, like I was saying. So bring visuals, please. Don't bring 50 visuals, bring some visuals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As a jumping off point, I think is really helpful.
I think another thing is like understanding that it does come in phases. It does come in revisions. Like you don't get one shot only. Like you're not paying for one shot.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you do, but you shouldn't
sometimes.
be paying like a crazy amount.
But like the idea of bringing in those visuals, if I brought 50 visuals in, it's because I'm scared and paranoid about, having to do it again, But 3 says, okay, let's get the first one, then let's go from there. And now once you've got like 2 revisions, is it okay to send more photos of like, hey, I like where this is going. Can we turn it to more like this?
You can. I think you can. I think the issue with that potentially could be, if you send that photo, could we turn this into more like this?
Insulting?
No, not at all. Not insulting. I think the number one thing also as a graphic designer, even though I said, like we all kind of have a little bit of like a signature look, is ultimately, at least for me, is you're an artist for hire to a certain degree. And so you cannot, that's not your personal work. That's not my personal work. This is not my personal artwork that I'm hanging in a gallery, in which case if
Interesting.
You are not liking what's there, you have every right to tell me that you are not liking what I put down in front of you and what needs to change, because you're paying me to do that. Now, within reason, if I give you something and you're like, okay, but let's make it look more like this, and the thing you give me looks entirely different than what I just gave you on maybe the second or third revision.
Roasted.
We need to have a discussion, because either you haven't been honest with me,
or you
this entire time, or they just change their mind. And in which case they're, and some people can, it's not great, try to come in and say, oh, I saw this other thing, but I have one more revision, so I'm going to try to like sneak in this thing. That's also not good.
That's a low blow. People do that?
You as the designer have to kind of be like, that's an entirely different, that's an entire logo design revision. That's not just like a small revision or like, a medium amount of work.
You want a new logo.
Again, as a young graphic designer, you need to communicate that and be confident in communicating that. And as from the client's point of view, please don't do that.
Yeah.
But, it happens. People are people, and sometimes just weird shit happens. So
yeah, this is totally one of those situations where you have to communicate everything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had such horror stories with this stuff, and people I haven't even paid, just like, even reaching out to them like, whoa, what's going on? Like, are you sure you're a graphic designer? Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So finalizing, say third revision comes in, whatever revision, we hit that limit, and I love the logo. It's what I want. Now I say, all right, I need the logo. I need files. I need to put it on all these things. Mm-hmm. What's the finalization? Like, as a designer, you're giving me a product. What are the things you have to go through and things you do to give? When do you know that's it?
Again, it also depends on like what it is they came in for, because those will be,
let's say it was just a logo for like,
right. I was like, let's go with that.
Let's say with the logo.
All right. Logo, at the end of it, ideally I would give you, like an EPS file or a vector file for it. I would give you like a high res TIFF. I would, if I was a good designer, I would make it so that way your logo could be also made into black and white very easily. So that there's just like a quick color change if you ever needed to do that. And I might supply you with that additional file, so you always just had it.
I feel very spoiled with my designer as you talk about this.
You're like, okay. And then at the end of it, just, make sure that the client is happy, and that's it, but those are the files that I would give you. If they wanted you to send it to a printer and deliver you the product, that's, something that you would have worked out in the beginning, in which case.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you'd basically say, I want business cards, but I want I want you to go to the printer and, get them to me, and the designer would see that through from the actual design all the way to the finished product being in your hand, rather than just the art file. So they can do that too. Not every designer does that, but yeah. So it just depends on what was agreed upon in the beginning. But if it was just the files for you to do, mugs or whatever with. I mean, if I did the logo design and you wanted business cards in your hand, I'd get you the business cards in your hand, and I would give you all those logo files. I wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm sorry, I just did the cards. Here you go. And I'm keeping the files for the logo. You'd get all of those. So you could put it on mugs later. You could, do stuff with it. So
I'm very, very thankful. I mean, I got all the logos in every color I wanted. Yeah. I mean, yellow was my brand color, but black and white, black background, white back. I got all that stuff. I got all the elements. I got even the thunderbolts separately in all the colors.
See?
I was like, damn, I feel spoiled.
Yeah. And you know what? As a client, if you wanted to, you could ask for certain things like that.
The elements and the words
certain
and different
elements and things like that. And you like, oh, depending on how you want it, if it's a matter of just quickly turning off a layer and saving it, that's fine. Now, if you're like, oh, I want it situated like this above some words, like that's technically another design. You know what I mean?
So that's my next question, because like the story I told you about, the tote bags, the company going in and changing the design and putting new font and
okay. Yeah.
So when it comes to like, we're going to say June. It's a random month that came to my mind. It's June. Okay. And we finish business. You give me all my files. I design my business cards, my mugs, everything. Say December rolls around. We haven't talked in however many months. It's like 6 months. And I decide that I want to change something about the logo and switch it up. Mm-hmm. What is I guess it's not really a rule, because, technically I paid for this logo, but how do you go about it? Because it's got to be slightly insulting in a sense, like for someone to take your design and then start adding stuff onto it and basically turn it into a new design because they rearrange things. Mm. Should the client reach out to the designer and say, hey, I want to do this with it?
I mean, I would always recommend that, if you're not familiar with the tools that are there, reaching out to the designer first, because the finished product you're going to get is going to be cleaner. Chances are they have the knowledge, hopefully. And I say hopefully because there are designers out there that call themselves designers, and, whether they be new or, novice or just kind of like, I could do this, you know what I mean? That they don't know what they're doing, and they're saving to the wrong resolution, or the medium that it's going on, they use the wrong file and it turns out all pixelated and not like quite as nice as it could be. So I would always recommend going back to the designer, hopefully the one that knows what they're doing. Yeah. And, because they can, maybe make that adjustment for a couple of bucks, and it's not going to be, and you're going to end up with a product that you can reuse on a lot of other stuff because it got finished properly. Sometimes if you try doing it yourself, then it looks like you did it yourself. If you didn't like that designer, let's say you had a finished logo and you didn't like the designer, and you're like, okay, well, I want to change it, but God, I had such a bad experience with them. You know what I mean? Then you can take it to another designer, you know what I mean, to modify what's there. They won't be the live files.
So I guess in a sense, that you have to have files that someone else can modify, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and your design may be simple enough that,
recreate it in a
someone
sense.
Can recreate it in a sense, but ideally, hopefully you're wanting something like different enough that they, it shouldn't be too big of a tweak. Mm-hmm. I guess it just all depends on what that change is that you want. If it's a matter of, hit your microphone.
You're good. These things are very sturdy.
Like, I just bitch slapped the microphone. Can I say that?
Yeah, you're fine. Okay. You're good. Total freedom.
Okay.
Do whatever you want.
But I don't know. I totally forgot what we were talking about.
So post, like say you give me my logo, right? Like we've done business, we've gone through revisions. I have my logo, and say a year later, I decide I want to make a freaking banner, big old banner.
Yeah.
Put it on my front lawn.
Yes.
And I decide to take this part of the logo, but I want to add something new. And I take, myself, and I throw something on there. Obviously, it's not going to look as good, but to the point where it makes the logo look bad. Now, in a sense, yes, I paid you for this logo, but it's still your artwork. It's still your work with your name, attached to it in a sense. Mm-hmm. Is that insulting as an artist? Is that like a boundary that's being crossed as an artist, or is it once again like I paid you, I can do what I want with this? Not that I feel that way. I don't think that's smart, but
I think
because these are things that people just don't think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And and to be fair, they try to sometimes, save a buck, and they're like, oh, like I can just kind of like
manipulate it myself.
Put this over. Yeah. Or like, I've seen a few classes, I could figure it out, or, or
YouTube.
whatever they decide to do. Yeah. Whatever they decide to do to the logo that you did. And yeah, to a certain extent after that point, it's just kind of like, yeah, you hired me to do this thing. And at this point, if you want to do whatever you want to it, it's disappointing sometimes, especially if you think that you've done like a really good job, because you're like, and even if they wanted a revision, just like the artist side of me, and because I really do love what I do.
Yeah.
I do it for the money because obviously I need to get a paycheck, but I really do enjoy, getting that brief just right. And like, yes, like
satisfying.
You're happy, you got what you wanted, and I was able to produce something, you know what I mean? It's kind of like a fun game figuring that out. And like, I wish they would have just talked to me, and I would have loved to have still taken it in the same direction and made it different to how they wanted, but better. So disappointing, but I wouldn't say insulting,
But it is okay to reach out, even if it's been like a year. Like, this person has the files, and as a graphic designer, you keep all the files somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You don't delete that.
Usually, yes. I always say usually, hopefully, like all these things, these should be things that you expect from a freelance graphic designer.
So that's something that I've people I know have struggled with their businesses. They'll have logos, and their business will take some time to get up, and by the time their business becomes something, a functioning business, their logo isn't up to par, and they want to add something to it. And I've heard this, I don't want to reach out, I haven't talked to them in so long, it's been too long, and I want that to be cleared up. It's okay to reach out to your designer even if it's been a year.
They're not like like, oh, I haven't talked to that friend in a while, and I don't want to just all of a sudden ask them for a favor. You're paying them. I'm happy to hear from you in a year, 2 years, 10 years, because that means I'm getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm getting to still do what I love to do, which is design.
Yeah.
So if you're asking me to revise it after a year, whether it's small or big, call them. And if you're happy with them and you were happy with their work and you worked well with them, they're going to be happy to hear from you. So that's nothing you should ever be afraid to do.
Everyone take notes. It's okay. It's okay to do that.
It's
intimidating,
looked directly in the camera, and I was like, you call your designer now.
Look at the number at the bottom of the screen. It's like an infomercial right there.
I'm sorry I got so serious on it.
It's intimidating though. Like, on my end, I've always been slightly intimidated to reach out like, oh, hey, I know you did this insane amount of work and you're obviously the professional in the situation, but I have no idea what I'm talking about and I kind of want this. That's what goes through my head. I'm like, no, hike. It's okay. Reach out, get this done. Not that I've had to yet, but.
Well, and then again, that's the other thing that comes into play with somebody who might be a more seasoned graphic designer. If you tell me like I haven't talked to you in a while, and I like what you did for me like 5 years ago, but now I kind of want to do this adjustment.
Yeah.
In my mind, first thing I would ask you is why, but not in the sense of like, well, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to change my perfect design? It's more to get out of you, okay, why do you feel the need to change this? Like what is happening in your current business that you need that? And you might say like, well, I just want to like give it an edge. Yeah. Or I find that people have a really hard time reading this, and I've heard that from several people. Okay, let's talk about that, because this thing that you're telling me to do might not be the best direction. If that's the problem,
I know how to fix it.
We might be able to fix it this way, and it could end up so much better.
Yeah.
And that's that guidance. And what you said you want might also work too. And you can say, hey, I'll go ahead and do it that way, but then I'm also going to do this, and then you tell me what you think.
You have to have faith in each other too. Yeah.
There's trust, there's communication. It's like a whole dating relationship.
It really is. It's an interesting relationship, because it's like hiring an artist, like back in the old days when you would commission an artist for like a painting. It's you really gotta again come back to that. You like the designer that you're working with, and you feel comfortable talking to them and comfortable with the advice that they give you. That you're not like, oh God, they were so pushy and and very like, no, you don't want that. That sucks. Yeah.
If anybody's ever nobody should ever make you feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
You're paying them for the service that they learned how to do for a reason. You didn't go to school for that for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm sure if they came to your office, they would sound like an idiot. And, nobody wants to be made to feel like they're dumb or lesser than.
Yeah.
And no designer should ever make you feel like, oh, you sad little person. You
sad
don't know
little
what
person.
you're talking about. Let me show you the way. If you ever get in that situation, I would say turn around and find yourself a new designer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just feel like some people have had that experience where,
Oh yeah.
people come in with these, I'm an artist and I have a strong opinion and I know what I'm doing. And the other people, like you're saying on the other side of the table, of like, okay, well, they're an artist. They went to school for this. They know what they're doing. What do I know?
Yeah.
Well, you know what you like.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why
and that's what you're paying for. And that's why you're here.
So that's actually kind of my next question is I'm really curious about this. What if an artist what if like a really strongly, opinionated artist comes to you and says, "This is my artwork that I've painted. Make it a graphic so I can use it online."
Ooh.
Sorry, I went real harsh on that. I need to know.
I mean, I don't think I've ever had that happen, but I guess if they wanted a piece of artwork digitally rendered, it would depend on the piece. Because if you're talking like Photoshop brushstrokes and all kind of, there's a lot that could go into a potential recopying somebody's artwork, but digitally. I don't know if I've ever gotten that request.
So what if it's more like, hey, this is a piece of artwork I have. I want you to take this and I want you to add a little bit to it and make it a design, but I don't want you to take away from my artistic, input.
Okay.
Is that a more difficult situation dealing with someone that is already
an artist
Yeah.
in their medium?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I honestly, to me, I've never had that situation Actually, no, I have. I've had someone who drew like a doodle or a character. It was a dog. And this was like just a sketch that they had done. And they were like, hey, we really want this dog to be a part of our logo, this dog sketch specifically, in which case that would make them the artist of that. And they obviously loved it enough that they want me to trace it out and put it in their logo.
Wow.
In which case, okay, like let's start with that because that's something that you feel really strongly about. That's obviously your artwork. I'm going to go ahead and, copy that exactly what I'm seeing. And let's figure out how this is going to work with your logo. Text wise and, embellishments or colors or things like that. So for me, it would be no different than honestly any other client.
Okay.
If anything, sometimes if you have another artist, it could potentially be better because they understand the creative process, that it's not just like that design button.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people feel like there's that magic design button and it's just like, oh, I need you to change the color and da-da-da-da-da, and you just do that, right? You have those buttons on Photoshop.
It's like the easy button from Staples.
Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, there's more. It is from Staples. Where they kind of get like, okay, no, this is going to take you some time to kind of think of like the direction that you need to go in now to change.
They'll probably
everything.
communicate a little better.
Sometimes, yeah. And again, they're just another person. So they could be a difficult person. They could be a really easygoing person.
Well, see, because I kind of saw in the sense like if you have a person like that, it might limit your creativity as a designer because they already have everything in mind. And I mean, I'm not a designer though, so.
No, I mean it's all situational and about communication. So I know I keep harping on that, but it would be
it's what it is. 100%.
If they're a difficult person and you have to communicate with them, then that's what you got to do, and you got to try to like navigate through that.
Well, for me, like even now when I look at my logo, I feel good. Like it's been some time.
She did her job.
And like and the other one I had, it was whatever. That was not a great experience, but like it was a logo. It was fine. I didn't really care for it that much, but it worked. But when I got this, I looked at this and I was like, that's my show. And like, I want to feel that.
And she probably loves that.
I'm
as a
like all about this
designer,
damn
she's
thing.
like, I mean, you take pride in the fact that, you did a good job. Somebody's happy with the work. Ideally, you're happy with the work. But most importantly, at the end of the day, if you're looking to build that clientele and you're, this is not my private artwork.
Yeah.
It's about making you happy with what I gave you.
Yeah.
You know, I can guide you to where I think things might be choices that would not be good for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But ultimately I can try to guide you there. But if you don't want it and you're like, this is not going to make me happy, then okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's definitely that separation you have to have.
Yeah. And you're happy looking at this, and
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know, you guys created now a nice relationship to where you would be like, hey, I want to change this up, and you wouldn't be worried about
I already
it.
had her design a different logo for my music. So,
See?
yeah.
There you go. And that's what you want to do. And I think as a good designer, that's what you want to create. And as a client, that's what you want to feel is comfortable communicating with this person.
So the whole artist and designer, I feel both creative, but artist and designer kind of have their own
struggles.
Yeah, their own struggles.
Oh, absolutely.
And like you went to school for graphic design.
Yes.
I imagine. Yes. I mean, obviously you're
Right.
the pro.
Not everybody does, and they're still really great graphic designers.
So choosing to go to school, like you have your artists going into graphic design, you have your designers going into graphic design. Mm-hmm. And are they coming from two different places in reality, or is it just that they do different things? Because like when they enter that schooling, like, because did you go in as like an artist, someone that sketched all day, someone that, you know, did some sort of like art in that way, or were you more of like a designer? Were you fascinated by the colors and the graphics and all that stuff?
I went in actually as a business major and happened to kind of stumble into an art history class to meet like basic requirements and fell in love with that. And for a while I thought, I'm going to be an art history major and that's what I'm going to do. And then, you know, to meet some other requirements, I happened to like make my way into this graphic design class, which that was it. I fell in love. I was like, I didn't even make it into the class, but I stayed after the class to talk to the teacher and begged her. I was like, please, I will bring my own computer. I will just take up this tiny spot in like the back of the room. Like, I really want to do this. Like, whatever this is looks like really cool. And I just want to know more about it.
Wow.
And so she was like, okay, if you bring your own computer and, you know, if someone happens to drop out, like.
What a great story.
It was pretty cool. So it was me and actually this one other girl. Just like kind of in the back with our own little laptops.
Just fell in love with it right away.
Yeah. And I really stuck with it. And, you know, the teachers that I had cultivated a passion. I think maybe if I didn't have the professors that I did, I would have been like, all right. But they really made it challenging enough that it was actually enjoyable.
They fed your curiosity enough to turn it into a passion.
Yes. Yeah. So I really enjoy what I do. I think the benefit if you're an artist coming into graphic design is that, you know, ideally you have some drawing skills, you know, that I actually picked up when I was in school. So I would do life drawing and things like that and beginning drawing. But it's not like I came from a direction at all that was artistic, that I had artistic ability. If anything, I was like the least artistic person in my family. To all of a sudden becoming like, oh, that's your crazy art aunt, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think that could be a benefit. If you learn to draw, that's a huge benefit as a graphic designer, because then you're not always limited by what Shutterstock can give you. You know what I mean? You can
Procreate now too.
Yeah. Well, and you can build your own imagery, you know, simply by sketching it and then tracing it, or sketching it right in Photoshop or Illustrator, or you know, all those other programs. So it's helpful to know how to draw. So yeah, from an artist coming into it, it's awesome.
So I mean, designers, artists, all the people that anybody that ends up in graphic design, finding out that you know it's right for you before you choose to go to school for it, or I mean, you were in school and you're like, oh my God, this is it. You know, you found it. But what are things to explore? Like, are there things that you can try before graphic design, before going to school for graphic design, that will let you understand if you're going to be into this or not?
That's a good question, Haig. Oh, it's like you have a show that you ask these things about.
Someday. I
Someday.
aspire to have a
Someday you'll
show.
be a real boy and, have your own show. I mean, I would say, like, for me, some people don't like school. They don't like being in classes. They don't like, doing that. I was not a big high school person.
Yeah.
But college, oh my God. If I could have been like a forever student, I would have. It was just...
Damn, maybe I should have went to college. I've heard that one too many times.
It's the best. It's awesome because it's up to you.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, you don't get the grade. You can't stay in the class, or you just don't keep up.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. So at that point, it's not someone forcing you to, this is, second period, third period, you need to be here and listen to stuff. Is that a phone call?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
I never had it on loud before.
I don't know if I have mine on vibrate or not, but I'm not important.
Damn,
enough that
that's
a lot of
on
people
loud and
call
that's
me.
the first one. I'm so not popular. Jesus, this is humiliating.
You're fine. Just got to give you a little bit of shit for it. But yeah, it was, I would say if you can get in a classroom, and there's some people that thrive on like online classes. Like, oh, I did an online course and I thought it was really fun.
I don't have the discipline. Though for like something like graphic design, because it has to be critiqued.
Yeah. And you have to get used to being critiqued.
And having other art, and that's something that's a huge issue with music right now, in my opinion, is the fact that everyone can sit at home and create an entire band and all this music by themselves and then just put it out there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's great, but there's nothing compares to being around other musicians and having them critique you and, grow with them and jam and like it's the same concept with art, especially graphic design. Like, you have to get used to that.
You don't want to be in a vacuum. Honestly, you really don't want to be in a vacuum. And I would say starting off, if you can get into like a beginner Photoshop class, like an actual class with a teacher, ideally a professor that's awesome and inspiring, but I think everybody wants that. But even just the students around you if you have questions, if you're home by yourself, you might automatically feel defeated by something. Like, this is not working how I want it to, and I don't even know how to get it to. Mm-hmm. Ideally, the professor will be able to help you with that.
Even other students.
Like, I'm trying this thing and it's not working, and they'll say, oh, it's because, you get your caps button on. Or, sounds
like a high
try to do this, or, and they'll be able to help you through those frustrating points. And I think that beginning class should tell you enough of like, I really enjoy this, or like, this is a nice hobby, or like, oh my God, this entire class has been a nightmare. Like, I don't even want to deal with this. You know what I mean?
Give yourself a test run, basically.
Yeah, I would say absolutely say that. And worst case, you end up getting a credit for an art class. You know what I mean? For a semester. But yeah.
Well, before we go, I ask all my guests this. I asked for their advice. If I just graduated high school, if I just graduated college with a graphic design degree and I want to do freelance, or let's do both. I'm going to go freelance, or I'm going to go get hired by a company.
Okay.
What is your advice to me? Yeah.
Ooh, with the questions. There's so much advice. I think that's why I'm having to pause. There's so much advice.
What are like the three main things that like to send me off?
To send you off. Work hard. You're going to need to work hard to get where you want to go, because there's a lot of people being graphic designers and wanting to be graphic designers. And any first time job that you're trying to get out of college, you've got all these other people applying, and it's going to take some grit and some persistence to get you through that door. You know what I mean? And you have to understand that you're going to need to push, and it's not going to be easy. Maybe it will be, and then awesome for you if you're that person. Hate you a little bit, but
I sensed it.
Yeah. But you know what? You're going to need to be tough. Mm-hmm. And also, really spend the time to work on your portfolio and your resume. We look at, typos. We look at, what you put on your portfolio of like, oh, that's a tangent. Oh, that line could have been a little cleaner. Oh, so when what you put out there, what you present to people, make sure it's spot on. Have other people look at it. Have your friends from school look at it. Have somebody who has nothing to do with design look at it. See if they might pick something up. That's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah, they see things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
that is ultimately the audience you're going to be presenting to sometimes as a graphic designer.
I like to play unmixed tracks to people that don't know anything about recording.
Yeah.
Just to see how they respond.
And they might be like, or they're like, oh, this sounds good. But then there was this part and you're like, okay, that's interesting that you heard it that way. But, you know, make sure that those things are spot on. And let's see, communication. Practice talking to people and dealing with those things. Because even in an interview, you know, I think my interview, I don't know if you've noticed, but I can talk a lot.
I love it.
I don't know
that's
if that came
you know
through.
What the worst situation for me is?
Podcast.
The worst situation is having someone come on and either not talk at barely talk, but worse, like not have opinions.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess yeah. Like, sir, I brought you on. Bam, please communicate with me.
Well, I've definitely given you my opinions.
This is gold.
But awesome.
I love it.
Hope this is good for your 50th episode.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, just you need to being able to present yourself, whether it be freelance to a client, that you have the confidence to give them what they need, or if you're applying for a job, you're also pitching yourself to sometimes a room of people or one person of that you are the employee that they want, and you need to be able to talk confidently, and
you gotta like yourself.
Yeah. Even if you don't like yourself, just talk confidently. All right.
Do a pump up in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I could do this.
And just, you know, be able to talk about your work too.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe the stories behind them, the challenges that came with that particular piece. You know, they want to hear about how you worked through stuff. You know, if you're going to a company, they want to hear about, you know, this was challenging because X, Y, and Z, and this is how I overcame it. You know what I mean? And this is how, and this project was fun for me because I got to use this new tool and
Soundbite right there. That's gold.
Oh, all right. I'll hear that. I'm like, oh, that's gold. Okay.
I like that. That's really good.
You know, you need to be able to explain your work to people.
Well, like even like any art, like that's what excites us as consumers. Like we like to hear about the process. We like to hear what you went through, what makes this piece. I love it, but why do I love it?
Yes, exactly. Tell me why I love these things.
Tell me.
Also, keep it short. Don't talk too much. People won't like you.
They will on this show.
Exactly.
This is the place to come
for
and do
the
that.
Appropriate place. Talk enough, but not too much. But yeah, so just practice that communication. And you know, selling yourself, selling your work. I think that, so to review, you need to be gritty and work hard. Do, you know, a thorough comb through of your portfolio and your resume, because they do get looked at and, you know, studied and picked apart.
Man,
as being one of those people that have had to study and pick apart other people's resumes, trust me, I know.
Damn.
We see the flaws, you know, and, you know, it's what separates you from everybody else. That's what's going to get you at least the call, you know, and then just know how to sell yourself and sell your work and be able to communicate that face to face. And
Rock
those
and
three
roll.
things will be good.
That's great. That's awesome.
Good sound
I
bite?
judge every guest on their advice.
Ooh.
I'm kidding. I don't.
All right, then. I'll just take my free cup.
That was great. Well, Margaux, I can't thank you enough for coming and doing this. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time.
He has, and I've been canceling, and I'm sorry.
No, this was worth the wait. This was spectacular.
Okay.
I absolutely love this, and I hope everyone that's listening has learned a lot and knows what to do in this situation, because it is just a not talked about situation.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like you brought up some really interesting questions, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't really think about that stuff, you know, doing this every day. But yeah, those are situations that on my side I ran into, and I'm sure, you know, now having been doing this for 9 years now.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to go back home and check the math. That, you know, I see the client's perspective a little bit more having done it, So
It's a high demand thing.
you asked a lot of really good questions, Hike.
Well, thank you.
Well, you should give yourself a free cup.
I actually don't have one of the new cups.
You don't?
I save them for the guests.
Why?
Because I have like 40 Metallica cups. That's why. There's no room for my mugs.
Branding. It's all about your branding. I'm even wearing his fun bracelet and drinking out of his mug. See?
There you go. Well, Margaux, thank you so much. And yeah, this has been the Studio Corner Podcast, episode 50, 1 year later.
Woo-hoo!
Hell yeah. All right, peace.